All right, buckle up because today we are diving into a story that's got it all: huge amounts of money, open source ideals, a clash of titans, and more drama than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah, let's just say that things in the WordPress world have gotten a little interesting lately.
You're telling me. I love a good tech showdown, and the stuff you sent me, articles, videos, the whole 9 yards, has me completely hooked.
Yeah.
We're talking about Matt Mullenweg, right? The WordPress co-founder and Automatic CEO. And he's going head-to-head with WP Engine, which is, what, a big WordPress hosting company?
You got it. And this whole thing really boils down to a question that has been simmering in the tech world for a while now. When for-profit companies build entire businesses on the backs of open source projects, how much do they really owe to them? Because WP Engine is not some small fry, they are making bank, and Mullenweg is saying that they are not giving back to the WordPress project nearly enough.
Okay, so before we get into the accusations and all the fallout, can you give me a quick rundown of who the players are here? It's easy to get lost in all the acronyms and such: WordPress and Automatic and WP Engine.
Absolutely. So we've got Matt Mullenweg. He is the co-founder of WordPress, which is basically the backbone of a huge percentage of websites out there on the internet, but he also heads up Automatic, and they are the company behind WordPress.com, which is a commercial service, so they're making money, and they offer things like hosting and extra features on top of the free open source WordPress software.
And this is where WP Engine comes in. They do WordPress hosting too.
Exactly. WP Engine is a managed WordPress hosting company. Basically, what that means is that they handle all the technical stuff: security, updates, backups, performance optimization, so that their customers don't have to. Think of it like the difference between renting an apartment and hiring a property management company.
Okay, got it. So we've got Mullenweg and Automatic on one side, WP Engine on the other, and they're both super deep in the WordPress ecosystem. What's the problem? What's got Matt Mullenweg so riled up?
Basically, Mullenweg is saying that WP Engine is not doing their part to support the open source WordPress project. WordPress itself is totally free to use, modify, and distribute. That's because of its open source license, but developing and maintaining software like that takes a ton of resources.
And that is where this whole giving back thing comes in.
Exactly. Automatic is super invested in WordPress, so they contribute a lot to its development. They do this through a program they call Five for the Future. Basically, they encourage other companies that are profiting from WordPress to pledge at least 5% of their resources, their time, money, manpower, back to the project.
Five for the Future. That's a catchy name. What does that actually look like in practice? Is it like writing code, fixing bugs, stuff like that?
It can be all sorts of things. Direct code contributions are a big part of it, for sure. But it could also be things like translating WordPress into other languages, organizing WordCamps and meetups, creating educational resources, or even just helping to run the online forums. It's all about contributing to the WordPress ecosystem so that it stays healthy and sustainable.
So Mullenweg is saying that WP Engine isn't holding up their end of the deal, that they're making money from this open source project without giving back enough to make sure it keeps going and getting better.
That's the gist of his argument, yeah. He's saying that WP Engine is basically free riding on the success of WordPress and not contributing enough to make sure that it is still being developed and improved. And he's decided to make this a very public fight.
Public? How? Like, did he take out a billboard or something? How did he turn this into such a big public showdown?
Well, he chose quite the stage for his opening shot, WordCamp US,
Oh, wow.
one of the biggest WordPress conferences of the year.
Talk about an audience. Okay, so
Yeah.
he stands up in front of all these WordPress developers and users, probably some WP Engine people in the room too, and then what? Just lets them have it?
He did not mince words, that's for sure. He basically accused WP Engine of being a parasite on the WordPress ecosystem, benefiting from the WordPress name without giving back in a way that he felt was good enough, basically.
But isn't there some gray area there? WP Engine is offering a useful service to WordPress users. They make it easier for people to make websites. Where's the line between just running a business and taking advantage?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And actually, Mullenweg's complaints were about more than just how much WP Engine contributes. He accused them of misleading customers, making people think that they were officially affiliated with WordPress. He even used his own mother as an example. He
Really?
said she was confused by WP Engine's branding.
So wait, he's saying that WP Engine is trying to make it seem like they're officially connected to WordPress when they aren't.
Exactly, like writing WordPress's coattails. He called them out for using phrases like managed WordPress and hosted WordPress in their marketing and said they were trying to make it seem like they were endorsed by WordPress or like they were an official WordPress.org product.
Didn't he then try to trademark those exact phrases?
Did.
It's like he's trying to call dibs after the fact.
Exactly. And that's when things got really crazy. Those trademark attempts did not go over well with a lot of people. A lot of people saw it as a power grab, like he was trying to bully WP Engine because they didn't do what he wanted.
Okay, so now we've got public accusations, we've got trademark issues. It's already getting pretty messy. And it sounds like it didn't stop there.
Oh no, this is just the beginning. Remember those messages that Mullenweg sent to the WP Engine leadership? The ones that had people whispering about extortion?
Oh yeah, those. What was he asking for?
Well, if you believe WP Engine, Mullenweg started out by asking for them to pay automatic 8% of their revenue as part of a licensing agreement.
8%.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, most commercial open source software licenses are more like 1 or 2%.
And to his company, not even to the WordPress Foundation or something.
Exactly. Now, in Mullenweg's defense, he later said that he gave WP Engine other ways that they could contribute, like giving developer time to work on WordPress core or directly funding open source projects.
So he gave them options.
Mm-hmm.
But it still seems like those options were about what he wanted them to do, not really about how WP Engine thought they should be involved in the community.
You got it. And WP Engine was not backing down at all. They came back with their own accusations against Mullenweg. They published a cease and desist letter, and they even publicly accused him of extortion. They said that they already contribute to the WordPress ecosystem in big ways, things like sponsoring WordCamps and developing popular plugins like advanced custom fields that one's used on millions of websites and creating educational content. They're basically like, look, we are giving back, just not necessarily in the exact ways that you want us to.
This is getting juicy. So we've got these public back and forths, accusations flying every which way, and tons of tension. How did the rest of the WordPress community react to all of this? Were they picking sides?
It was definitely a divisive issue, but one thing is for sure, this whole thing highlighted just how much power Matt Mullenweg has in the WordPress world.
Especially that whole thing with the plugin repository, right? That felt like a step too far.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about Mullenweg actually blocking WP Engine sites from accessing the WordPress plugin repository for a while, which could have caused huge security problems for millions of websites.
Wait, hold on. Explain that to me like I'm brand new to WordPress. What's so important about this plugin repository?
Okay, so think of it this way. Plugins are basically like apps for your WordPress website, right? They let you add all sorts of cool functions, contact forms, online stores, all kinds of stuff. And the plugin repository is like the official app store for WordPress, the place where you go to get those plugins and update them. And it's super important to keep your plugins updated. That's how you make sure that your website stays secure. Because outdated plugins, a lot of times they have security flaws in them that hackers can use to break into your site.
So by blocking WP Engine sites from using the repository, he was basically stopping them from keeping their website secure. That's playing hardball.
It was definitely a controversial move. People felt like he was abusing his power, punishing WP Engine's users for something that they had no control over. Eventually, Mullenweg did back down and gave them back access, but a lot of people felt like the damage was already done.
This is making me think this is about a lot more than just WordPress, right? It feels like a symptom of a much bigger conversation that's happening about open source software,
Yeah.
especially now that these companies are building whole business models on top of it.
Definitely. This fight has really shown everyone how complicated the relationship is between open source and commercial success. It's forcing people to really think about what it actually means to give back to open source, who gets to make those decisions, and how we can make sure that open source projects get the funding they need without getting rid of the freedom and collaboration that makes them so great.
Those are some big questions. This is definitely giving me a lot to think about. You know, it's wild to me how this whole thing blew up,
Yeah.
right? It went from some behind-the-scenes disagreement about contributions, and suddenly it's a huge public spectacle.
Well, it really shows you how much tension has been building under the surface in the open source world. You've got this amazing concept, free software and collaboration, everyone working together to make something great. But then you bring in these for-profit companies and they're building these billion-dollar businesses using that free software as a foundation, and that's when things get complicated.
For sure. And it's not even like WP Engine was saying open source was bad or that they wanted to dismantle it, right? They were pointing to their own contributions. They sponsor WordCamps. They build plugins as proof that they care about the WordPress ecosystem and want to support it.
Right, and that's where it gets tricky because what they're saying goes right to the heart of what giving back even means. Is it all about directly contributing code to WordPress itself? Or does it include other activities that help the community more broadly?
And who even gets to decide that? Because it felt like Mullenweg was saying, it's my way or the highway. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah, it definitely raised some eyebrows. People were asking, should one person, even a co-founder, have that much power in the WordPress community? Is it healthy for WordPress long-term, having so much power in one place, especially since there are potential conflicts of interest because of his company, Automatic?
This is really making me wonder, how do other open source projects handle this kind of thing? Is there a way to make sure open source projects get the funding they need, but without getting rid of that open, community-driven spirit?
That is the million-dollar question, and unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Some projects, like Mozilla, for example, they've got foundations to create a structure for funding and decision-making. Other projects are more decentralized. You've got lots of different companies and people contributing.
So there's no magic solution.
Not really, no. Every project is different. They've got their own communities, their own ways of doing things.
It's funny in a way, don't you think? WordPress is this hugely successful open source project. It powers a huge chunk of the internet, but we're still figuring out these basic questions, how to make sure it's financially stable, how to make sure the power structure is fair.
Yeah, and the WordPress community is definitely feeling that. This whole saga has sparked so many discussions and debates. Some developers are even wondering if they should look at other options, other platforms. It's been a real shakeup.
So what happens now? What's next?
That's the big question, isn't it? Will WP Engine just give in to what Mullenweg wants? Will the WordPress community push for more, I don't know, democracy? Will people abandon WordPress entirely? Only time will tell.
This deep dive has really shown just how complicated things are in the open source world.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how much is going on behind the scenes of all the software and services we use every single day.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder that we're not just passive users, we're part of these online communities, and we have a responsibility to be engaged, to ask tough questions, to fight for a future where open source can keep thriving.
It really comes down to this. What are the responsibilities of these companies that are building businesses using free software? Is it enough for them to just follow the license? Or is there a moral obligation to give back in a way that makes sense for open source? And how do we as a community make sure that everyone benefits from how powerful free and open software can be? Those are the questions we all need to be thinking about.
Well said. This has been a fascinating deep dive, and it's clear that there are no easy answers. But one thing is for sure, this conversation is far from over.
Absolutely not. Until next time, keep those brains running, keep asking the tough questions, and keep diving deep.